The Moors were closing in on the British ship. The Sark lay silent. The schooner was close enough for them to hear the yelping, screeching war cries of the corsairs as they swung up on either side of the crippled sailing ship. He could see a black giant, naked save for a twisted rag of loincloth in the bows of the lead pirogue, swinging a grapnel on the end of a long rope, then tossing it with a shouted, "Wawaho!" A dozen more flew out from the pirate vessels, trailing their cords like a malignant spider's web. The rowers snatched their oars in, moving in trained unison, and then tallied onto the lines and drew them hand over hand. "Are those useless palms going to do anything?" Sheila asked, fingering the cutlass at her side. The crew waited, armed and tense. "They will," Hortel said, "though I don't know how many are fit for duty after the battering the ship took in that effing storm. Just about." Scores of strong arms drew the corsair vessels in alongside the British ship, 2 on either side and 1 under the stern. More crowded in to grapple with those, making a bridge of boats for boarding. Men crawled over the long, slender craft like flies on dead meat. Each of the corsair craft had 20 oars aside, and most carried as many men again as the 40 needed to row. Many of the pirates were olive-skinned Moors in long robes and turbans, some with an end of it drawn across their faces, or darker Pule dressed likewise. Others were tall, muscular, ebony-black Serere and Wolof tribesmen in anything from scarves and nakedness to long white nightshirt-like garments now curded up around their knees. Some wore crude armor of leather with bits of metal sewn on, and a few had helmets under their turbans. Their weapons were broad-bladed spears, machetes, axes, some crude, curved slashing swords hammered out of scrap steel. Edge and point sparkled and swirled in the bright sunlight as they crowded forward screaming their war cries, and a flurry of javelins went before them. "And about now," Hortel said, feeling his teeth skin back from his lips. The sides of the Cuddy Sark seemed to ripple for a moment in a wave of greenish-brown, as the men who'd been lying flat on their decks came erect, standing in 3 staggered rows on each side, 40 to port and as many to starboard, drawing their bows to the ear. The savage screaming of the corsairs cut off with a horrified suddenness, and the command came over the water, thin with distance, but distinct. "Howly together! Loose!